Alright, we are recording.
Hello everybody, my name is Nicholas Robb, this is Adam Keller, Chance Wagner, and Evelyn Bondo. And today we will be talking about school security in the United States. Now, since the year 2000, there have been over 200 school shootings in the United States, with at least one per state. In high schools, there have been 70 people killed and roughly 200 wounded. At elementary schools and middle schools, nearly 60 have been killed with over 100 wounded. All of this is since the year 2000. As shown on screen, we have a graph of the incidences of U.S. school shootings from the year 1960 to 2018. As you can see, there's a trend line from 1960 to 2018 that shows as the years go by, we are more likely to see school shootings than the previous year. Now, this all led us to the question, how should schools in the United States be regulated to ensure student safety? To accurately understand this issue, our solution to this problem is that we should increase schools' budget by $1 million and require 20% of that increase be allocated to school security measures. To accurately understand this issue, we divided our research into three separate lenses, the first lens being social and cultural.
Through this lens, we are able to see the perspectives of experts and students alike on why this problem originates and how they believe it should be fixed. According to Stephen Sumner, a medical epidemiologist at the Division of Violence Prevention at the CDC, or Centers for Disease Control, risk factors that can influence perpetration of violence are individuals, families, communities, and society. There are also certain neuropsychological deficits that may be present due to chronic stressors in early childhood. An example of how this works would be a youth interpreting a glance or an accidental bump in a hallway as a threat, when in reality this was not really a harmful interaction. From the perspectives of experts, Randy Borum, an advisor to the National Center of Analysis of Violent Crime and a senior behavioral analyst, Matthew Mayer, a member of the American Educational Research Association, Dewey Cornell, a psychologist, Erwin Hyman, a former clinical service administrator, and Diane Perrone, a former school psychologist. Searching lockers, digital cameras, placement of staff, metal detectors, etc. may help reduce unruly public behaviors, but they argue to reject ineffective and misguided practices such as intrusive and sometimes abusive law enforcement procedures, such as strip searches and inappropriate verbalizations by figures of authority. These perspectives promote the idea of not just providing security to keep students safe, but watching and intervening in childhood before a neuropsychological issue becomes a mass school shooting. From the perspective of a student, Jacqueline Morton, she says that awareness is a big part of solving the problem of violence in schools. Overall, these perspectives show how school safety involves more than just tangible provisions.
So, in schools across the U.S., security measures are watching students and staff the entire day, during school hours, and even after. And this caused me to have a question on wondering how ethical is the use of these measures in schools. So right off the bat, I thought that these measures don't need to be viewed in an ethical way at all because they put safety measures in. However, this isn't necessarily the case. But before I can talk about most of the ethical reasons, I need to explain why this is happening, why these are important. In the Scholastic article titled Privacy versus Security by David Rapp, Rapp shares how in 2000 to 2006, there were roughly 2.2 million crimes, or about one crime per every 20 students in schools alone. These crimes are what prompted a lot of installations of cameras and metal detectors into schools during this time period. But if an increase in school security happens, it does come with a decrease in school privacy of these students and staff. Every day, students are monitored, and some students' parents don't want that. So this is an ethical balance there for those parents. Is the risks for these students and staff worth the privacy for some? Some religions, like the Amish, do not use and do not like being on camera, due to this being against their religion. However, the use of these measures, in my opinion, outweighs the emotions for those parents. Safety is one of the most important things And if you can potentially save lives over people's emotions, that should have no say. The use of security in schools is ethically right in order to protect staff and students. There are ways to appeal to both sides of votes or similar activities, but overall it should be without question it's ethically moral to install these security measures. Here's Adam, who will talk about the economic reasons for this issue.
Thank you. Whenever school security is brought up, one of the first things that come to mind is what's the cost? And unfortunately, it has been called into question on whether or not these security methods are at all cost effective. One of the biggest items being implemented are security cameras. Now, the average security camera has a total cost of $300 per unit, $200 for the actual camera, and $100 for installation. On top of, while this is very expensive, not to mention the cost of manpower to actually monitor and use said cameras, these cameras may also help to save money on security. By having security cameras through school, schools can reduce the amount of security guards they have on patrol. However, some people have challenged this notion by saying that they aren't cost effective. According to Matthew Lynch, a high school teacher himself, he stated that he stated that security cameras are a waste of money. He said that, quote, security cameras are money wasted because all the security cameras in the world would not have prevented the largest school tragedies of recent history, from Sandy Hook Elementary to the Virginia Tech massacre. Security cameras and other monitoring devices give us a false feeling of security and an actionable course when there are no answers to pointless questions. While yes, these security cameras were present in these incidents and weren't extremely effective in solving the issues, there have been countless times where security cameras have stopped lower level crimes and school shootings themselves. The other big security measure being implemented are metal detectors. According to Ken Trump, head and president of National School Safety and Security Services, he says that Springfield's open checkbook website allows the city, shows that the city paid $16,475 for 5 metal detectors and sent the company another $2,799.50 for an unspecified invoice in the fiscal 2015 year, along with $1,000 for a repair. A separate line item titled Metal Detector and Handheld Wand shows a cost of $4,044.95. The average metal detector cost can be anywhere between $3,000 and $8,000 a piece. While they are expensive, they have been shown to be effective. In the year 2000, a study was done that showed that metal detectors in a Chicago school found 294 weapons, 15 of which were firearms. And in the case of money, schools are getting boosts in their security budgets. The following map here shows states across the U.S. where they had schools get an increase in their budget. It's a little hard to see due to the filament on the projector, but these darker areas were originally blue, and the blue areas show increases in the school increases in school security budgets in the 2016 year. The gray states are states where nothing has changed, and the white states is where legislation has not been passed yet. This right here already shows the increase in the amount of money we're pouring into school security. Specifically, the amounts of money have ranged dramatically by state, from $300,000 for schools in Missouri, while $400 million in Florida. Now, we have 3 solutions in total, 2 proposed by various perspectives and one of our own. One of the solutions proposed is to simply get rid of school security measures altogether due to their ineffectiveness in mass shootings such as the Virginia Tech massacre and Sandy Hook, as well as their overall cost and manpower. However, this is a bad idea. As previously stated, overall these security measures do their jobs, and with increases to security budgets nationwide, money will no longer be as big of an issue in a few years. Another solution commonly proposed is to put even more money into security, to ridiculous amounts, such as Florida with their $400 million. However, this could be a bad idea, as this generates a false sense of security as well as overall fear, turning schools into more like prisons.
Once again, our solution was how should schools in the United States be regulated to ensure student safety, and our solution was to increase school budgets by $1 million, with 20% be allocated to school security measures. The number one limitation to this is that it could be very expensive for the country, but we believe that you can put no price on the safety of our students. Here's our works cited. Thank you for listening.
All right. Apollonia, describe how the content of the team presentation was changed as a result of group discussion.
The content that was changed because of discussion left out like slides for Nick's historical and political perspective. We actually melded his research with mine because we had some matching points about like statistics and the background of like how school violence has changed over the years. So that changed because of our discussion about both of our IRRs.
Okay. Nick, what is an example of a compelling argument from one of your peers' individual reports that you decided to exclude from your team presentation, and why?
An example from say Adam's IRR was that he proposed that we have teachers be required to be trained in behavioral and situational de-escalation training, but after further discussion, we discovered that this would be an impractical thing to do and nearly impossible to retrain all current teachers and all incoming teachers.
Adam, having finished your project, what, if anything, do you consider to be a gap in your team's research that, if addressed, would make you feel more confident about your conclusion?
So one of the gaps in our team research was definitely kind of going back to what Nick said about the de-escalation training. One of the things that I wanted to see, as well as the rest of our group, was more focus on kind of psychological aspects, as well as the de-escalation training, because that's been one of the major things that cops use. And as stated, like for example in our school, we have cops patrolling, which are trained in de-escalation methods. However, the issue with talking about that is when we first came up with our lenses and all that, we didn't have a medical lens. And focusing on something so narrow as that, with information, but it would be so narrow-minded and so focused to have someone do a medical lens on, it didn't seem very plausible or logistically reasonable to do.
Okay. And Chance, reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem your group identified?
I think Adam's work overall had probably the biggest impact, because obviously when you're talking about school security and things like that, money is a huge issue or a huge problem that different schools will have, where budgets can vary depending on states and areas and things like that. So overall, I think Adam's had the greatest impact on what we were working with.
Okay, thank you very much.